welcome to this episode of Healthwise 360, a creation of Clarissa Burt, founder of In the Limelight Media. And I'm your show host, Chrissy Cordingley. And you'll be able to see this interview on In the Limelight TV, which is distributed on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and 100 other smart TV apps. The audio version of this interview can be heard wherever you listen to your podcast. So today I'm really excited to be interviewing Dr. Terry Zachary, who's the author of Great Hands, Great Life, and is the inventor of the Handmaster Plus hand exercise system. He is a sports chiropractor who took 3 years off of practice to chase his dream of playing professional golf. And Dr. Zachary sadly did not make the PGA Tour, but instead became a hand exercise and grip expert after witnessing dozens of repetitive grip injuries in professional golfers. Dr. Zachary has since helped hundreds of thousands of people to exercise their hands properly and get a grip on grip. In therapy, sports, music, workplace, gaming, hobby, and smartphone users, his exercises have created strong and healthy fingers, thumbs, hands, wrists, carpal tunnels, and elbows around the world. So welcome, Dr. Zachary.
Well, thank you, Chrissy, for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking to you particularly.
Definitely. So the first question I want to ask is, you had a successful practice, and I'm always fascinated by why people, because I think life is not linear. We do have multiple dreams, right? It's not always just one thing. We can want more in life. And you risked your professional practice to chase a dream for several years. What was the drive behind that decision?
Yeah, Chrissy, I agree with you. I don't think life is linear for everybody. Now, sometimes we ignore a voice that might want to get us to check something else out because it doesn't seem safe and all that. But that's exactly what it was with me. The practice, we had a great practice. I loved being in practice. But I had a good college career. I was still playing competitively on the side as well as with my practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like it was just an intuitive thing. I really wanted to chase this dream. I felt I could do it. I was a hard worker, great learner. I loved it, and I thought I could do it. So I knew I could have a practice to fall back on. So I was really in a blessed position to really take a risk without really taking a risk while I was still young and could do it. So I chased the dream, and it's fascinating to me that no, I didn't make the PGA Tour, which you gave away that little nugget, but it ends up being that when you chase your passions and you really get interested in the details of what you're doing, that it's just amazing how something comes up that leads you into a great service to others.
Absolutely. I sort of sometimes call that the law of indirect effect. Sometimes the rewards don't come from exactly where you're placing pressure, but there is a reason why we are prompted to do things, and that usually comes out in the end, which is pretty exciting. Yeah. So you have the benefits of being both a sports chiropractor and a professional golfer. So you were a professional golfer. What were the benefits of that, of learning? What did you learn about yourself
Chrissy,
and about people?
It's interesting to have both of those aspects when you talk about it, because I knew golf really well. I mean, to get to the level of even playing in college and stuff, you see good college players. It takes a lot of study, a lot of effort, a lot of practice, et cetera, et cetera. And so I knew the game of golf very well. I knew a lot about it. And so did all the players I was playing with. Now, I was always on mini tours, but good players through the mini tours before you see them on the PGA Tour. I mean, so they knew their equipment well. They knew the golf swing well. All of us knew that to get to that level. What was surprising to me is how little they knew about what I call your main equipment, yourself, your body.
Yeah.
And so when they found out I was a sports chiropractor, I was approached many, many times, very regularly, from the golfers that were on these mini tours with lots of problems, and a lot of them were repetitive grip problems that I had dealt with already in practice. I'm Canadian, so I dealt with a lot of hockey players, a lot of professional hockey players, and amateur as well, advanced amateur players, but also a lot of golfers. So I had seen this whole act before. I didn't realize really how consistent I would see it on tour, but I'd already developed a protocol, which was 4 or 5 different exercises. And I know with your background, you would know most of what the exercises that they were, except those exercises were multiple items, a little bit complicated. You'd have to explain like the spreading of the fingers. We'd have to change an elastic band around if we wanted to get all the finger spreading muscles. And And I was really acute about training the hands in practice. And I quickly realized that I would ask the players, what do you do for hand exercise when they had problems? And they would usually say, I grip something, a spring-loaded item or a coiled item or a ball or, racquetball, tennis ball, what have you. When I asked them about what they do to open and spread their hand, it's as if I changed languages. They would look at me and just go, what are you talking about?
There's muscles on the other side of our heads? What?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I had the benefit knowing both to be able to communicate with these people that trusted me and to say that you have, to dumb it down a little bit, you have 9 muscles that close the hand. You have 9 muscles that open the hand. And your approach right now is regularly gripping and then repetitively gripping more. And I would often tell them it's like having bad posture and
Yes.
asking and telling you to slouch more. It doesn't make any sense. So it was an advantage being both because I had access to the golfers. They trusted me, but I could clearly see the problem from day one when it wasn't something I had to really figure out what the problem was.
Absolutely. And I would think, I always think of like in funny shows when people play video games so long, they get the claw, right? Like they're just
yeah,
that kind of thing.
We call it a Lego hand.
Lego
the
hand.
Lego characters, and you see people that grip a lot, and they call that a Lego hand. But it is so prevalent in athletes and musicians and etc. Anybody that grips, you see it so much. It's a really common problem to see.
It is. They can really easily get more hand injuries and that type of thing. So what were the downsides? You said there were some downsides as well to being
the downsides, Chrissy, would be I was trying to pursue a golf myself. So when I would go to the practice tee or I'd be on the golf course, people would be approaching me, and it wouldn't really bug me because I love helping people, but I realized these solutions I'm not going to have time to, and also I would say that they don't have time to spend time on 4 or 5 exercises a couple times a day. But the con of being a professional golfer and then also having people approaching me about health problems and performance problems was that I wasn't getting into my own game. I was distracted from my own practice and my own preparation for tournaments, while at the same time realizing that there was a problem that had to be dealt with. So it was a distraction. As I found out in the long term, it was a distraction in a good way. Because as we started playing with and in fact, as you asked that question, Chrissy, even getting into how we developed this product called Handmaster Plus, now it's kind of all over the place now. But back then it was, you talked about it a little bit before. It's like this, your path kind of winds around. And I had one particular player that developed a tennis elbow. He had a wife and children at home, really depending on him. And he's at the stage of a mini tour. So he had developed a tennis elbow so debilitating, he couldn't even pick up a cup of coffee. And it really got me to acutely realize, okay, not only for my own selfish reasons do I have to provide a more simple solution for these players or for these golfers, but also there's lives depending on functioning properly. And it was shortly after that was like 3 o'clock in the morning, middle of the night. All of a sudden it's like, if you put a flexible elastic cord through a central, resistance ball, that might take care of all the muscles. And the resistance would come from the middle of the hand, which is proper resistance.
Yes.
Mechanically for the fingers and thumbs. And it was like, I'm getting out of bed. I'm going to write this stuff down, draw it up so I don't forget. And, I started working on it from then afterwards. It came together quite easily. And I started with just literally hollowing out a ball and putting some fanny's fabrics like elastic band, tying it all together, making a loop for this particular gentleman, this player. And pretty soon we got into these exercises and it was just like Shangri-La. It was easy for him to do it. I was realizing I'm not going to have to spend an hour to explain to these people how it works. They simply had to close their hand and open and spread, and it worked, and he loved it, and he did really well after that. And he's back playing, and I've got an easy solution where I can say, hey, just do this instead of all the long explanation. So the con wasn't a con. It turned out to be pretty helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you show your device there?
Yeah.
Because I think you have it with you. Because I know a
I
lot
have
of
one
people
with me. I have a
when they
medium
think,
one.
yeah,
So
different.
this was the only thing I intended to make, by the way, to
Yeah,
begin with. I wanted to develop something for, and I knew the problem was in hockey players, but I knew it was in grip athletes in
yeah,
general. So we developed a medium one, and very simply, it ended up being, it's not Fanny's fabric anymore,
yeah.
elastic band, but you very simply, I mean, I'll show it to you. Very
And
simply
the
put it.
Americans are like, "What's Fanny's fabrics?" Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. I don't even know if I hope they're around still, so who knows?
Yeah.
But so yeah, so now I would tell the players, rather than 4 or 5 exercises that they won't remember, very unlikely to do consistently, they now just close against the ball and whoops, I'm not showing that very well. And then they
There
open
you go.
and
It's
spread
perfect.
against the courts. You close, open, and spread. And I know with your background, you'll be able to see that not only can somebody do this quite easily, but it's almost like healthy fast food. They can do
Yeah.
it quickly, but the mechanics are actually better. You can see the thumb and the finger going through full natural opening and spreading.
Yeah.
And so we get the 9 muscles that close and the 9 muscles that open through a full natural range of motion. Person would just go until they feel a comfortable fatigue. Literally takes 30 seconds to a minute, a couple times a
Hmm.
day, and you stimulate these strong, balanced finger, thumb, hand, wrist, carpal tunnel, elbow. And the other thing about it is that we stimulate, because it's full range of motion, we stimulate blood flow, maximum blood flow to the extremities and to the tissues, and maximum lymph drainage back away, so we can get rid of like waste products and toxins and whatnot. So it turned out to be just that challenge turned out to just create a really complete item. And when we used to show elastic bands, and it would drive me crazy, Chrissy, that I couldn't get the person. I believe in full range of motion exercise. And when an elastic band would open, I couldn't get him to open fully because the elastic band fell off.
Yeah.
So as we developed this, I'm going, holy cow, now you can also take that hand through its full natural range of motion. And that's really, really important. When we've done EMG studies on hand muscles, and the output from the muscle is so much greater. The blood flow, lymph drainage is so much greater, and we accomplish everything and dumbing it down. So it's been really, really nice to work with, and it's easy to work with.
It looks really easy. It looks very ergonomically correct too.
Yes.
I find it surprising though that people don't. I mean, especially athletes, right? Because they know sports, they know contraction and flexion,
Yeah.
right? They know that if I work my biceps, I got to work my triceps, right? They understand that. So how come with the hands, it's such a different? Is it just because they're small? Do we take them for granted because we use them so often? What
Yeah,
do you think the
yeah. I
problem
think
is?
it's an excellent question because it's a question I've thought about a lot,
Yeah.
and we deal with it. I deal with it daily. I'm
Hmm.
shocked, yeah, that people don't realize it. What I believe is that, and then that's another thing going back when I came onto the scene with professional golf. Um, these people, these were not unintelligent people in general. These are people that, know the golf swing in and out, which is very difficult to understand. They know their
Hmm.
equipment in and out, which is very difficult to understand. This is it's almost like a foreign area, this hand. And when you look into it, we've spent some time at hand surgeon meetings, and the hand surgeon would know these areas inside and out, and they are complicated, like the paths of the origins and the insertions and what nerves are stimulating what, and where the blood flow and venous drainage comes from. It is complicated.
Hmm.
And if we sat in on some surgeries where they were just doing anatomy and opening up, and it's really complicated. Like, if it's not your main area of study, it's really complicated. So when we deal with like hand therapists and hand surgeons, this is what they do, and that's their profession. So
Hmm.
it's really complicated. And that's one of the things when we came in there, I always wondered, why didn't somebody come in before me and see this problem with these people? Because it's clear there's a problem.
Hmm.
And that's what my conclusion was, is you get into it and it's tricky. It's like, whoa, I'm going to stay away from this. And that's why we also talk about the importance of dumbing it down. And because of that exercise that I just showed you, when you
Hmm.
take the Handmaster Plus, it's not, you are exercising those all 18 muscles through full natural range of motion, but you don't have to explain anything more to the person other than 9 muscles close, 9 muscles open. If you understand that, you'll never do hand exercise wrong again. And we don't
Yes.
have to get into the intricacies about these hand muscles. Because once you look into them, it's even intimidating to me. And I've been at it for 20 years.
You almost need a physics degree, right? With all the pulleys and levers and things that
You
happen in the
do,
hand.
you do.
Yeah.
And every time you look into something, and you look into the function of one area, it keeps you going. It's like another rabbit hole you go down, and it's very intricate. I'm pretty much addicted to it now, but if you look at it light and superficially, it's gonna repel you.
Yes. Yes,
And I think that's
definitely.
why people look away from it. And it's interesting. And even another story is through working with this product, and we work with, we have access. We work with JHS Strings, which is a strings company in music. Because as we
Oh,
got
nice.
going with this, Chrissy, you just see that this isn't just in sports. It's not just in golf, not just in sports. It's everywhere. We talk about smartphones. You talk about gamers, like some of these really popular things now. It really accelerates the problem of repetitive grip. But we dealt with a Hall of Fame band that I was a huge fan of when I was a kid through GHS.
So nice.
So when we meet them before the concert, like it's unbelievable. You're right in the back end there. And I talked to one of my main guitar players where I've just been blown away by forever. And the manager introduced us and what I do. And he was blown away. He's like, oh, okay, well, I've got this arthritis problem in my wrist. And do you think it could possibly do anything with that? He had no idea of this area. And you're talking about a guy that's played for probably 30 years. And so we talked him through these simple, to you and me, what would seem like pretty simple hand muscles. This was like they'd never heard anything like this before. So even advanced people in every place, it's the same thing. Why do people not have a concern about this area? It's an enormous area. Absolutely.
Yeah, I could see, because I even used to work in heavy industry as a health and safety specialist. So like tools, like mechanics and little tools and little pieces and those type of thing. Like, but you see a lot of repetitive strain injuries in that area, and a lot of, finger and arthritis. And I even noticed in my like own family, like grandparents who are baking all the time and kneading dough, the first thing that they get arthritis in is always their hands, because they're only using it the one way, right? They're not.
And you know what, Chrissy, let me speak to that, in fact, as well, because it's another thing that you see all the time is, so we get into different things and again, I didn't certainly mean to look into this deeply to start, but you start to look into all these different things, and arthritis maybe particularly, but there's certain activities that are also going to be more dramatic than other activities. And you think about, I know you've got a background in ergonomics as well. So if I'm gripping something, for example, like a softball, it's more like the regular size of my hand or something, that size. There is still the grip mechanics going on that we have to be concerned about. The muscles that close the hand contract, but they're supported by the muscles that open the hand. Like it's a co-contraction.
Yeah.
And we, generally, as we've spoken, people do train the muscles that close, but they forget about these muscles that are supporting the closing. And that's when you get a lot of problems where you build static extensor muscles over the time. But what's even more challenging on the hands is when you get items that are not ergonomically similar to the hand. So you're talking now about your, bakers, sewers, crochet, and where do you see all the arthritis? And generally, I don't want to be just the classic lady that is knitting all her life and gets arthritis in her hands. Well, it's black and white. Your small range of motion. The other thing is we talk about, we generally always, this conversation steers into the carpal tunnel, that the smaller, so you've got some of the small muscles like of the thumb and the pinky finger that do flexion and opposition and will hold like an artist or a crochet needle, or dental hygienist's a big deal, really big deal. And you can see that carpal tunnel just shut down. So we're training that carpal tunnel to be shut down and wondering why we're getting carpal tunnel syndrome. And when I look at it and we say, hey, what about those 9 muscles that open and spread, right? You get those muscles strong, and pretty soon you see a wider carpal tunnel over the career or the life of these people. So small items absolutely put a big red flag on smartphones. Everybody's got a smartphone nowadays, and there's, people in there texting. And if you turn it around, that you just look at that cleavage, it's right there. Carpal tunnel shut down. So we're looking right at it and wondering why we're doing this. So with this dependence on our hands, and especially small items nowadays, you have to do something to offset that. It's just mechanics. It's not like the mechanics of nature are going to let you off. If you
This is the
understand,
mechanics of nature. Yeah.
exactly, if you understand how the body works, you just simply have to either quit your activity if you want to stay in balance, which is unrealistic to most people that, love knitting or love painting or whatever, or you have to offset what you're doing. And in smartphones, very similar. You want to do this all your life and expect not to have thumb and finger and carpal tunnel problems.
Yeah.
Just keep your hands healthy. And one more thing, one more comment on that is that I think one of the things that surprised me the most with getting into the hand muscles and training them is there's now probably a dozen studies showing about people with strong hands, like grip strength is directly correlated to life longevity. That might seem like a grandiose statement, and it doesn't surprise me when these studies are coming out and I'm going, what is going on? Because we would always get people regularly would say, I started exercising my hands and my carpal tunnel feels better, or my thumb or finger, whatever, elbow, but I'm feeling better in general. I'm sleeping better. And I know I don't want to go off on this because this is just an observation.
Yeah.
But there is studies that show strong hands correlate to longer life longevity. And I can certainly supply with all the studies, but there's lots of them. And what we see is that, again, blood flow to the periphery, right? And lymph drainage away from the periphery. And especially with the hands, your lymph ducts are up at, not far from the upper extremity. We may be creating more efficient lymph ducts, which drain all the, that drains your whole body. That's head, neck, everything. And so we do feel like these underrated little hands of ours, might be more important than we think. And even if they're not, why not have healthy hands and, be able to do the functions that you're doing with your hands better?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And if you're in pain, you use your hands all the time. And if that's the source of your pain, that's really going to cloud a lot of your days. So when you do feel better there, you're probably going to be more active and more out in the world too.
I think, Chrissy, like you say, that's what I always assumed when I got the cases where they said, I'm actually feeling better too. Mm-hmm. I just assumed, well, you don't have you don't have this pain that you're dealing with all the time. So that just probably helps. I'm sure that's a lot of it.
Oh yeah. But
it's just
actual
curious.
Benefits, yeah.
It's just curious to look at parts of the body once we do get exercising, that it does actually improve our life, not just that particular body part. This concept of increasing our circulation and getting our body to be more efficient is so important, and the hands are no exception.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So I know that you said there's a lot of golfers that ask for help and advice, but you also mentioned that you did learn something from golfers, that there was something golfers knew about hand strength and grip.
Yeah. Within the golf ranks, there is, you'll see when it gets, you're getting, I won't say to the elite, but when you get, say, a golf teacher, for example,
the
stronger my hands are, just functionally now we're talking. And if I strengthen that hold, we talk about the chain of grip a little bit. These muscles close the hand, but those muscles support the flexor muscles, and they all have to be strengthened in balance. There's actually a gripping exercise we do with our product that I can show your viewers as well. I can just lead them to that. But with golf itself, all golfers know that all golf teachers, let's say if I'm teaching 20 beginner golfers, I know that the stronger their hands are, the more they can actually lighten up their grip. Because you don't want to be taking it and gripping the golf club really super hard. You don't want to grip a guitar really super hard. But to be light with it and still have control, it helps to have a base of strength and have to that mechanical chain proper. So if I'm teaching 20 beginner golfers, I would love to see that they have as strong as hands as possible so they can get their hands on the grip and be really light, have a lighter grip and still control the club. So I got that a lot out of the golfers too, as we started developing this. We still work with golfers to this day, and just the feedback is, just to set the club is a lot easier. I feel like I have control of the club. with the elite players, then they're playing golf courses where if you hit it off the fairway, which these guys and girls, crazily enough, on female and male tours, don't miss fairways too much, like you and me now. I'm not that good anymore.
Always me. I was never a good golfer.
Well, anybody out there that's, mediocre to not, to a not great golfer is going to be in the rough a lot. Well, these guys have rough that's this deep on some of their tournaments. And to be able to have now call on strong hands to keep that club from turning in the deep rough, the function of strong hands is never, ever on any way to look at it a bad thing. Regular golf, I have strong hands. I can easily control the golf club without a lot of stress. That relaxes the rest of my body to turn. And then when called upon, you have strength for when you need it.
Perfect. And tell us a little bit about your book and what information you've placed in your book for those that might want to pick it up.
I'll show the viewers. So it's Great Hands, Great Life. Looks like that.
And it even has your tool on it, which is exciting.
Yeah, it shows the Handmaster Plus right there. And it goes, some of the book talks about Handmaster Plus, just showing exercises for whatever the needs are. And again, there's only a few basic exercises that anybody that uses our product would need. The figure 8 exercise, if you can just search Handmaster Plus figure 8 exercise, it's the exercise we use with all of our kind of performance people, like if you're in sports or music or even gamers and stuff, because it takes care of the 9 muscles that close the hand, the 9 muscles that open hand, but also the 9 forearm muscles that position the forearm. And that's really, really important. It's almost a subject of its own to get into. But the book itself, Great Hands, Great Life, goes through all the different sections, your fingers, your thumbs, your carpal tunnel, your elbow, where all these muscles go in general. There is one anatomy chapter that, if you're not into it, you can snooze and go right through it. But it generally lays out so you can see that the muscles that close the hand are generally on the front. Muscles that open the hand are generally on the back. And when we keep those in balance, sorry, I'm skipping one part, Chrissy, as you know, the muscles of the hand attach all different places. People think, well, those muscles are just in the hand. No. They attach fingers, thumb, hand, wrist, carpal tunnel, forearm, elbow. So every time you are exercising your hands properly, you're stabilizing all of those joints and structures. So we go through each of the joints and structures individually. And then some of the chapters speak to athletes, some speak to musicians, some speak to, there's a chapter on the blood flow and lymph drainage concept. So it's just a really all-encompassing read. And for people that once they hear things like this and they realize, man, these hands are really important to my performance and to my health, then it's a really good read. And you'll come out of there knowing probably as much as any therapist, basically. I shouldn't say that, but you'll have a real good feel for how important this area is and why we say it's so important to keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. I've had a hand injury once. I had I sprained myself falling on ice because I live in Canada as well. So that's pretty common around here. And when you fall, you're like, you land on your hands, and not having the use of your hands is really frustrating. So it's definitely something people should take care of, and even just well-being. And so what advice would you have for people that sort of battle with, say, young people and their electronic devices? Is there something you'd recommend for either how much time to use it or how to use it or what to do instead of?
Yeah, you're talking about smartphones and gamers and stuff like that?
Yes.
We've got 3 kids, and we kind of, I wouldn't say we battle, but we push the borders of how much they want to use the gaming stuff and we want to. So that's kind of like a management thing. But I do think, parents have to be aware that these kids are they're developing imbalances as they're doing their gaming. And it's a part of their culture. It's kind of hard to take their culture right away from them. And there's some real positive things in some of the gaming and some of the online stuff, educational stuff. I mean, we always talk about the negative, which is, you really have to watch that. But in general, that's one of the things that we want to be present on, is that I'm a big believer is I'm a chiropractor, so we've talked about the spine for, endlessly for all my life. And it's the center of your whole body. But if we don't talk about it, people who do things forward and they get in deflection, well, we got to talk about them offsetting that and strengthening their muscles. It's the same thing. We just have to understand the mechanics. If I am doing this all day, if I got a mouse or I'm, I've got this, or I've got a smartphone, or I'm gaming. So we've watched kids for 10, 15 years, and the mechanics of gaming, we've tested the muscles, and they're very similar mechanics to anything where you're gripping something. But again, small range of motion. And often on computers, like there's computer gamers, if you watch some of the esports, they're basically on a keyboard going crazy. And then the palms down, and I don't want to get too complicated, but when your palm goes down, that even puts more pressure in your elbow,
It
because
does.
not only are you mechanically, supporting your flexion, and the finger extensor muscles are supporting that, but the finger extensor muscles have to hold, and the wrist extensors have to hold against gravity. So anytime there's a mechanic, this is why dental hygienists is a classic example.
Yeah.
They're taking something now, small range of motion and mechanical, so there's some vibration, and with long periods of time, and palm down in general. There's certain things that are just a nightmare. But anyways, getting back to your original question was about gaming itself. Anything mechanical, excuse me, when we learn about the hands and how stressed that can be, whether it's the gaming or we just talked about the dental hygienists, they have to understand that there's only two ways to keep your hand muscles in balance and healthy. You quit repetitive gripping, and that means you quit being a dental hygienist, or you quit being a gamer, right? Or you quit being a golfer. Well, that's not going to happen. Put down the guitar. That's not going to happen. Or you do something you recognize the imbalance. You learn about this miraculous body that you're a part of, and you do something to offset that and actually prepare yourself for the activity that you're doing. Just like a professional football player or whatever, you pick a sport, if they walk out into the field and they haven't done anything to prepare for it, they're going to be probably some pretty deep trouble.
Yes.
It's the same thing. We just don't, in our mind yet, understand that gaming is a physical challenge. Dental hygienist is a physical challenge. Guitar is a physical challenge. It's a repetitive gripping physical challenge. And as we talk to more and more people about this, we can prepare them easily for their endeavor or their occupation or their gaming or whatever. Smartphones is a big deal. If we're all carrying smartphones, why not keep your hand muscles strong and in balance? Why not bring blood flow to your body and be healthy? We have to acknowledge we are creating imbalance, do something to offset it. And we really work hard at getting the message out that we've got a pretty easy solution.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you. We'll make sure that every way people can reach you and find your information, find your book, find your equipment. We'll make sure that is in the show notes. So I hope lots of people reach out to you for help, because I think this is really, really important. I totally agree. Even just using keyboards, one of my biggest pet peeves when I was in occupational safety was the keyboard, but they, just like you said, like they have their hands like straight, but their palms up, and then they use those keyboard rests. So these muscles here that you're actually using while you're typing are they're now being compressed, and you're creating friction in there too, which is also because you're resting it on the desk for a pad, which is that's for in between typing, but you take it off, right? And people misuse equipment like that because we see it in the store, but we don't understand how to use it properly.
Yeah, so. I agree. It actually creates a really funny lever that doesn't help the flexor muscles, depending on how you do it. Actually creates,
it stretches all the way up. You can hurt your shoulder doing that.
Yeah, it's exactly true. And that's why, this is an important area. People just kind of glaze over it, but it's so important to your health. And all the way to your neck and shoulders. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not hand muscles, when you start to use them improperly, they're always based, from to the elbow, then they're based to the shoulder next, then they're based to the neck next. So we just think, it's just those little hands. Who cares? They're just, they just work. No, they've got to be in balance, and the rest of your body's got to be understood how to stay in balance, or imbalances here inevitably have to come to your base as well. So that's a really good point. You should understand that whole upper extremity for sure.
Absolutely. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off for the day?
I think, boy, I think you covered it. Those are excellent questions. I kind of knew we'd go through it pretty well with you. I think in general, I think learning to be in awe of your body a little bit, in awe of this, how your body was created. And then once you hear situations like you and I talk, then get a little bit interested in it, try to exercise it, see what it feels like. And if you think this is all a bunch of hogwash, okay, throw it away, whatever. But once you feel it and once you experience it, I think it's as simple as I close my hand and I open and spread my hand, but it's also like, wow, this fitness, I can do it and it feels good. And maybe it gets you even more active in other areas. Maybe we start getting to the gym a little bit more, maybe, but just initiating into the idea of fitness and simple things that you can do for a minute a day, a couple minutes a day, and just add that into your routine and see what it does to your lifestyle. And see, when you understand your body and you work with it, how your life can change. I think when people do that, they'll just go like, geez, I'm glad I made this decision, type of thing. And we should look at our body and really try to prepare our body, because if we, once the health goes and once your performance goes, it can be a pretty slippery slope.
It
So just
is.
keep healthy and respect, be in awe of this design that you're part of, and then work with it.
Absolutely. That's excellent. This is an excellent information. So thank you so much for your time, Dr. Terry.
Well, Chrissy, good to meet you. I was looking forward to this talk, and keep up the good work yourself. It's awesome what you guys are doing.
Thank you.